In today's video, we're going to walk you through how to determine how many ad groups you should use for a brand new Google Ads campaign that you should make. And this is one of the first things you want to do after you've published initially a Google Ads campaign and paused it after going through the initial campaign setup that we've already done in this series so far, where we've walked you through exactly how to set up a new Google Ads campaign up as far as this point. But if you've done your keyword research and have a list of keywords that you want to target for your campaign, the next thing you want to do then is make separate ad groups for those keywords, because you might have about 100 keywords that you've gathered when doing your initial keyword research, and you might need to know how many ad groups you should use and what the structure of each ad group should look like. So we're just going to give you an example of what that would look like for a real campaign, just to give you an idea of exactly how you go about separating your own ad groups. And before we got to this point of publishing the campaign initially and getting to the stage where we want to make our ad groups, we added some examples of landscaping related keywords that we wanted to add to a spreadsheet so that we'd be able to add these to our Google Ads campaign. And if you're doing full keyword research for a whole campaign, you might have a list that's much longer than this. And what we want to do next is actually split up all of our keywords into separate ad groups. And the key to having a successful ad group is think about the ad that you can write for that ad group and think, am I able to write an ad that's highly relevant to all of the keywords inside this ad group? And now, because all of the keywords here in this case are all related to landscaping, then you could easily write ads that mention landscaping in all of the headlines and descriptions and would be relevant to all of the keywords here, because all of these keywords here have the same intent, whether someone's looking for landscaping services, landscaping contractor, or a landscaping company. The intent behind all of those searches is the exact same because they're all looking for a landscaper at the end of the day. And so when it comes to ad group structure, it really is about having the right balance between not being too granular or not being too broad at the same time. So you don't want to have a crazy amount of ad groups, but only one keyword in each. But at the same time, you don't want to have too many keywords in an ad group either, because the more keywords you have in an ad group, the harder it is to write a relevant ad for all of those keywords. So when it comes to actually doing your ad group structure, you might want to use the Google Sheet like this, for example, to make all your columns. And what you want to do then is go through all of the initial keywords that you made. And this can be, for example, your general landscaping ad group. And the reason why all of these keywords would actually be suitable together for an ad group is that the intent behind them is the same. And what you can also do as well early on is, if you think that all of these keywords would perform together in an ad group because they have the exact same intent, run them together in an ad group. But if you notice, for example, that one of the keywords seems to be spending a lot and isn't converting, you could split that up into a separate ad group. So let's just say, for example, if landscape gardeners here wasn't performing that well, then maybe you could make a landscape gardening specific ad group. So that way, then that new ad group is even more specific and isn't just landscaping, where you keep all the generic landscaping keywords together, and then you have a new ad group for landscape gardening related keywords. So you can always add in more ad groups as well after your campaign goes live. But what we want to do initially is make sure that all of the keywords that we have in an ad group are highly relevant to one another. And if we did the keyword research in full for this campaign, if you offer other landscaping services, for example, artificial grass installation, and for example, you might offer some other services. So, for example, fence installation, patio installation. So, we'll add these in here as well. And when you're doing your initial keyword research at the beginning, you would have already thought of, okay, what actual services do I want to appear for? So if these were the different services that you want to appear for, then you would already have a list of keywords here that you want to add. And then it's really simple when you're targeting a few specific services, because obviously all of the artificial grass installation related keywords would go here, and same with fence installation and patio installation. Because instead of having your ads being all related to landscaping and somewhat relevant, if somebody searches for artificial grass installation, for example, and they see an ad that says artificial grass installation, that's going to be a lot more relevant and more likely to be clicked on than if you were to just try and put all of your keywords together in your landscaping ad group. So this applies to so many other industries as well. For example, roofing, instead of having generic roofing ads, you look at all the different services within roofing that you're targeting. So roof repair, chimney repair, and make all different ad groups for those. Same with plumbing, for example, if you offer boiler installation, heat pump installation, plumbing repairs, and all the different aspects of that, you would have different ad groups for all of the keywords for those specific services. So that way, when they search for that specific service, they see an ad that's specific to that service appear as well. So you're not just trying to cover everything with the one ad. And Google will prefer this and rank you higher for those searches as well, because Google will see that you're actually getting a higher click through rate from having more specific ads and providing their users with a better user experience overall, especially when you have separate landing pages for all these ad groups as well. And that's just going to lead to you having a higher quality score with a higher ad rank and lower cost per click. So what you would do is have all of your keywords in here for these specific services that you offer. And what I also like to do as well in a lot of service-based businesses is, let's just say you're offering a service like this, for example, landscaping, or whether it be roofing or plumbing, as we mentioned, you could have location specific ad groups as well. For example, in this campaign, if we were targeting 2 counties in Ireland, for example, Dublin and Meath, you could have ad groups for that. And we found that those location specific ad groups perform just as well as service specific ad groups as well. Because usually, if somebody is searching for a plumber in location, landscaper in location, that, the intent is quite high and that they're actually interested in getting the job done. What I like to do is, depending on the keywords that you actually find in the Google Ads Keyword Planner, is that you might have a long list of keywords to begin with, and then you want to split all of those keywords up into as many ad groups as necessary. And as long as the keywords are all highly relevant to one another, and you know that the ads you're going to be able to make here are all highly relevant for those keywords, then that's exactly how you want to structure your ad groups. And what I'll do now as well is add in some keyword ideas of what you'd actually put in here just as examples of keywords that are lined up and all relevant to one another, so that when you're doing your own keyword research and structuring your ad groups, that you have an idea that all of these keywords are actually relevant to one another, as an example, as a guide to follow. Now, what I've done as examples for the campaign that we're creating for this campaign is added some examples of keywords that would all work well together inside these ad groups, just so you know exactly how these tightly themed ad groups work and why these ads would perform a lot better when the keywords are split up like this. Because all of these, for example, fence installation keywords, they'd all work a lot better and an ad would be way more likely to get the click when all of the headlines and descriptions that we'll go through are specific to fence installation and aren't just put together in the landscaping that's somewhat relevant. And same with the other ad groups that we have here as well, including the location specific keywords. So when you're doing your keyword research in advance, you would decide already what locations you'd be targeting, what services you'd be targeting. So you already have an idea of the actual titles of each ad group and roughly how many ad groups you're going to be using based on that. And what you can do initially, as I mentioned, is add all the keywords that you want to target together just in one column like this, but then split all of those keywords up into the separate ad groups based on the intent of that keyword. So that way then when it comes to actually making our ad groups, as we'll go through inside these videos, it's just going to be so much easier once you already have your keywords split up into ad groups like this. And as I mentioned as well, once you're confident that the intent is the same for all of the keywords inside each ad group, you can make your campaign this way. And if you notice as time goes on that, for example, in the artificial grass installation ad group, that this ad group seems to be getting a lot more traffic than the other ad groups, then you could split out some of these keywords even further and go to the extent of, for example, putting artificial grass contractor in its own ad group just because it doesn't say word for word installation. But those are things that you can start considering if you think keywords would perform better in a separate ad group. Those are things you can start doing as you see that the campaign's actually getting traffic and spending and how the keywords are behaving inside the campaign. But once you have a structure like this to begin with, you have the right foundations in place for good ad group structure, and more ad groups can then always be added as time goes on. So I hope this video helped and gave you some clarity on how to determine how many ad groups you actually need for a new Google Ads campaign, and how to go about structuring them once you have your initial keyword research done. Now, if you do have any questions at all about anything we mentioned inside this video, feel free to leave a comment down below. And if you are a service-based business looking to have this done and implemented for you, feel free to have a look at the link in the description. And if you do like this Google Ads related content as well, do feel free to subscribe to the channel, as we'll be posting all aspects of everything that goes into creating a brand new Google Ads campaign and managing the campaign each day. And we've covered all aspects that went into making the campaign up as far as the initial publishing, and we'll continue to add the rest of the steps that go into making new Google Ads campaign. So stay tuned for that as well, and hopefully you enjoy the content, and we'll see you inside the next video.